Hey Thomas, how you doing?
Hey, David, how are you tonight, bud?
Oh, I'm full of piss and vinegar as usual.
Yeah, I
Um,
like it.
I, I just I got a lot to get off my plate, but I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
So how's I want to talk to you because I want to know what was going on because we don't get like a whole lot of news out of what's really going on in that neck of the woods in North Carolina and the affected area from Helene. Because, well, truly, for most of us, for most people that haven't spent time there, they don't have a real even concept of. I mean, it's still hard to imagine that somebody who lived in the on a mountain 2,300 feet up above sea level could legit flood.
Yeah.
And so like it's hard to conceive it. That's all.
Yeah.
And so
Things are stable, I guess is the best way I could really describe it. Water is still an issue everywhere. Asheville, Buncombe County, up, Burnsville, Banner Elk will not have water for quite a long time. And Black Mountain, for example, has water now. Cannot drink it. You can bathe in it, but it's brown.
yeah, I'm from Louisiana, and we 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 don't drink anything that don't come out of a bottle, man. Let me tell
That's
you,
right.
nothing.
Nothing.
It's like
Nothing.
we know what's in that water.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's a whole nother conversation is, there's some information leaking out that some of the Superfund locations have been exposed to the flooding and leaked some, nasty chemicals into the water. Chemical burns showing up on boots and gloves. But it's really not, there's a select number of people that are talking about it. But really, the focus is really on recovery, um, and just stabilization is
Yeah,
really what I call it.
in general, flood water is the nastiest water on earth
Yes,
because it has everything in it.
everything. So should we can we categorize as a Cat 5 water or a Cat 3? I mean, uh,
I mean, it's well, I mean, all that water is Cat 3 water when it starts because of its toxicity.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes see people that are wading through it, and I just think to myself,
and, they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, right? They're trying to help folks who are doing all this stuff. None of them have waders on. None of them have any type of PPE on, and but they're doing it out of love for another human being and just want to help. And that's the beautiful thing about Western North Carolina. I've seen Louisiana State Police there, Arkansas, uh, Connecticut, no, New Hampshire. I've seen people from all over the place, and they're still there. I just saw a Louisiana State Policeman maybe 3 days ago. Um, So the outpouring is there. Is it overwhelming for folks? Yes. Some of the political candidates have come into town over the last 2, 3 weeks and really made it a cluster. Traffic's horrible. And, I can't quantify this, but I think people are doing two things. One, they're being nosy. They want to come up and see what's going on, see it for themselves. And two, I think a lot of good-hearted people are coming up to spend their money with the local folks, to have some generation of income for them. Black Mountain, for example, is open. There's signs on the interstate. We are open. There's a lot of businesses there in the downtown area that are open, but there's no one coming to see them. And, we all know this is their time of the year where they're going to make all the revenue for the most part for the entire year. And so there's a sense of urgency there trying to get folks back. So I do think some of these guys and people are coming to spend their dollars.
I'm I'm hoping, and I'm hoping that the federal government will do something for these people that didn't have flood coverage to help them get their house back together. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you don't run the risk of losing your whole way of life because you don't end up with BlackRock owning half your city.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some news out that, the governor of North Carolina is saying we're not going to rebuild in certain areas. I would imagine that happens in these devastated, catastrophic flood events. That's just a part of the process. How
Yeah,
much
but
of the land can be sold? I don't know.
yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I, I I'm always amazed that the things that governors think they can do. Our stupid governor DeSantis got on the TV and is like, after our last storm, is like, I'm the sheriff in this town. We don't need no FEMA. I'm like, federal emergency management. Like, okay,
Yeah,
you rock on,
yeah,
buddy. No, but I just think that I don't know. I just wish they do that. But I mean, I'm also noticing just tons of wind claims as well coming
yes,
out of the whole region.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
it's I was on a loss earlier in the week, and there was clocked 100-mile-an-hour winds in this particular area. The windows had suffered some damage, but there was no other collateral damage that I could find. I couldn't find one lifted shingle.
wow.
So, which is, I had to scratch my head a few times. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So I started questioning the whole wind report and all that kind of stuff. But it was a high wind, and it caught the top of the canopies of these trees and took them down. They say, and there again, I cannot verify this, there's about 126,000 homes up in Western North Carolina that have damage. So let's say, let's just give it half and half, half
Yeah.
wind, half flood. That's a lot of damage. It's going to take a long time to recover.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how many people, like in Florida, you see people just sell as is, leave town, and move on to other things. Especially getting back-to-back flood events in Florida. I still think people are a little bit of shell shock in Western North Carolina. Like, how could this happen?
Yeah. I
How
mean,
did
I
we?
I still think about it because like I've spent a lot of time in that state because I have family there, and I mean, my mom used to live there, and I keep thinking about these places and thinking, how did that happen? You know, and the truth is that if you live downhill from any kind of running body of water, this can happen to you. I mean,
Yes.
that is we don't think about it because it doesn't happen very often, but I mean, I always think about like Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey um, pulled into to Houston and parked. It just stopped, and it sat there and dropped like 40, 50 inches of rain. Like it made the interstate, it made the interstates look like rivers, like as big as
Yeah.
the Mississippi. I mean, it was crazy, and and that doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. And
Yeah.
we also have to remember, and you know, nobody wants to talk about it this way, but we do have a decided change. We have seen multiple storms this year, which produce substantially more tornadoes than we ever see from these storms. You realize that Hurricane Beryl produced more hurricanes than Hurricane Katrina?
Really?
Yeah,
I
which
didn't
you
know.
would, I mean, like it was a head scratcher. That's why a lot of those, that's why a lot of those it was a small hurricane, but it had such a punch because it spun off so many tornadoes.
Wow.
And then the ones in Florida were like EF3s.
Ooh.
I mean,
And there was what, 180 of them or something? I mean, it was.
they think there was like 46, and then there was like another 140 sightings of different seeing them. And the thing was that, we're accustomed to a tornado that picks up over here and jumps around and is gone in 10 minutes.
This
And
time.
that sucker just kept on coming. What's really a shame is those people are and that was hours and hours and hours and hours and hours before the hurricane showed up. And but they're still gonna have to file hurricane claims,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
just literally sucks.
Yes. Because that deductible goes way up, and just yeah. And yeah, I I'd given some thought for about 30 seconds that I had a good friend of mine that had several trees on his house about 11 o'clock at night or something. He called me, and I'm thinking, wow, maybe. No, it's a hurricane. I thought for a second it would be that possibility. Like I said, maybe 30 seconds, and then quickly figured out, no, it's not going to happen.
The thing is, there's a bunch of case law in Florida that actually squares that just right. I mean, like you're not fighting it. You can't fight it. Hey, man, I got to tell you about two interesting things in my week. First, really interesting thing for my week is seeing an email from the carrier on a appraisal that I closed, where they said that they were firing they were informing us that they had fired their appraiser and were appointing someone new. Now, the award's signed. It's done. It's over. There's no appraisal going on. It's done.
I guess they have grand visions of trying to get it reopened.
Yeah. Well, all I could think was I told I was talking to the insured, and I just said to the insured, I said, maybe you should just write them back and say, if you just want me to get a lawyer, just say it. I mean, like this is the surest way. I mean, like, what else can you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just weird. And then I have this other one. And so you got to set it up right. So this thing gets hit by a tropical storm. Tropical storms are always argument makers when it comes to claims. So this is mom, and she has 2 adult children. And this was 4 years ago that this loss happened. So the carrier denies paying for the tile roof, but pays for the interior damages.
Of course they did.
But her deductible is like 16 grand, and they only paid for like 4 grand. So, so at any rate, I still always think it's funny when they pay for the interior damages, but they're not going to pay for what put the damages there. But that's that ship has sailed. They obviously can do that. They do it all over.
Yes.
I don't get it. It's like it showed up by immaculate conception. That water just appeared.
Absolutely.
But so anyway, she finally goes and gets a PA. The PA can't get it to go anywhere. It goes to an attorney, and so it's just slowly slogging through this system. Right, the market goes way up, and her kids both sell their houses at the top of the market, get really cashed up, and move into her house.
Jeez.
And she wants to sell her house, but she's got a broken roof, and she's got like some. And if you look at the decking, it shows there's issues. And so I guess she wasn't thinking that the law thing was going to work out, because she went and had foam shot in the attic.
Oh my gosh.
On the back of all that sheathing. And so I said to her, I said, hey, look,
I lied.
I said, why'd you do this? And she said, because I'm trying to sell my house. And so I felt for her at the same time, but it was just a buyer beware kind of a moment,
Yeah.
And
like I said, out of sight, out of mind, right?
I always tell these people the same thing though. If you are going to claim that your roof has to be replaced, it is a very good idea for you to tarp that roof, because if the only time you got damage was during this major wind event and not one bit of rain got you at any other time, it's probably not looking real good for you. Yeah. But the problem is like Florida and California and places like that. You know what the problem with tile roofs are, right?
What's the problem with them? The replaceability of them, you mean?
No, the problem with them, from an insurance perspective, is they're too damn expensive to replace.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you got your average house has a $75,000 roof on it, and this particular one's almost 60 square. You figure 60 square, about $1,600 a square. And if you replace the decking, you're over 100 grand.
Easy.
And, just most people don't have that kind of scratch sitting around to replace their roof with. I'm gonna buy me a house sometime soon, because I can't fix my house in time to go back to it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy me a house, and I'm gonna put me a metal roof on that bad boy. And no, this is funny. I went to go look at this house.
Tile in this house?
What's that?
Did you have
No,
tile?
I have just asphalt shingles. My HOA will only let me put asphalt shingles on my roof. Like, I was like, come on, man, you can let me put metal on my roof. But no, this it was the funniest thing. I'm sitting here looking at this house on Zillow, and I'm like, that house looks really familiar. And I told my wife, I said, I want to go look at this one. And she goes, well, what do you know about it? And I go, well, as it turns out, it's on this appraisal award. So I was the umpire on the job. I said, that's how I know they got a new roof.
Yeah, that's nice.
No, it's no, that particular appraisal is funny. The one of the PA was one of the appraisers, and this guy was wearing some Louis Vuitton shoes. Okay, he always wears really, really nice shoes, or supposedly nice for somebody. I'm not big in the loafer, but so his opposing appraiser was there, this lady that I know, and we're standing on the second floor, and he says, the water came down this wall and it got to the subfloor, and we're on the second floor. So we need to replace the subfloor and all the rugs. And she looked up at him and she goes, tell you what, if David gives you the rugs, then I will take you out to the best dinner you've ever had in your life. If he doesn't give you the rugs, I get the shoes.
Nice. Nice.
I looked at him. I said, that's a bad bet, buddy.
Yeah. Had your bet, bud.
But no, it was just funny. And I was thinking about that is, like in our business, and you have this in your business, you can't be in this business for a long time without driving by places saying, I did that. I did that. I did that.
Well, look at that. You walk in someone's house, say, ooh, there's some damage there. What's going on there? Structural issues going on and all that stuff.
Yeah. I always laugh at the restorers in general, because like they'll get on like the airplanes and find water damage in the airplanes.
When you're a restorer, you find water down. You can smell it out. You look for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What is let me ask you about the claims. Where are people that are displaced? Where are they being housed?
There's some Red Cross facilities. I think there's 3 different large sized facilities there. From what I understand, most of them are closing. The last one will close November 11th. This is over by the Asheville airport.
They just have like tents and that kind of thing, just a temporary housing?
What's really beautiful is there's a lot of people throughout the country that are bringing in RVs. They're building the Amish is in Asheville or Western North Carolina, building tiny homes for folks. And the outpouring, it's just beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful to see Americans coming together for one another. And there's a group from Australia there as well. So
I can show you how I can give you a great example of what it's like to have people just being their best version of themselves. Okay. It's like 4 days after Hurricane Michael. And, Hurricane Michael was one of the fairest storms I ever saw, because it literally, it did damage to everything. Matter of fact, there was this one place we found that they didn't do damage. It was a trailer, like a mobile home. And I knocked on that lady's door and I said, look, if you know who made this mobile home, you should call them and tell them that your mobile home's the only one in the entire region that didn't have any damage. She said, it blew my light off. That was it. It's like, but no, you're like 4 days in, and the president of the United States shows up about 2:00 in the afternoon one day, and like
Obama?
20 people. No, that was Trump, and they literally there was like 20 people that showed up. Like, the truth is, they could care less about all of that. Absolutely care less. And it was just interesting how that event just completely cleared out all that political thought and separation thought and all that. It was just gone. And I thought that was the coolest example.
Yeah.
After Hurricane Katrina, Slidell was completely cut off. Slidell, Louisiana was completely cut off, and Highway 12 had just oak trees all over it.
Yeah.
So my buddy, who is his family owned a big construction company, they're driving down the road and they're going to see. They're trying to get to Slidell, and they have all the brothers in this family, and they all got their trucks and their winches and their chainsaws, and his dad's in the truck, and they're cutting their way through so everybody can get in. And my friend that was his son too was quite gay, and his dad said to him, he said, I feel like I'm a general. And he looked at him and said, yeah, Dad, I outrank you. I'm a queen.
Oh.
I just could see that, the complete quiet and all these machines running, and his dad being like, "Oh hell!"
So
But
David, one of the other things, and I'm sorry to cut you off, I wanted
no,
to talk was the what's going on in Western North Carolina with adjusters, PAs, and mainly mitigation companies.
Yeah.
There seems to, I can tell you in Asheville, there's probably 35 to 40 mitigation companies. And because of the lack of, real big wind events and, the heavy competition, there's probably going to be some mitigation companies that are going to have to close. They just weren't going to survive. Well, they're now rushing out. This is, the gold rush of 2024. They're going out and they're, putting equipment out, putting a moisture meter here or there. They're not fully scoping the homes. They're not waiting. They're not pulling asbestos, reports. They're not checking for any type of hazards. They're just going in there wide ass open. And there's vapor barriers down there. I've seen some vapor barriers, which is, a whole nother process you need to go through to really check for the moisture. Back in 2018, Department of Insurance here in North Carolina put something out about the coastal Hurricane Florence and the vapor barriers there. Mm-hmm. It's like they don't even know it exists. And they're ripping stuff out and they're seeing it and they're just pulling it. They're not doing anything about it. They're not spending the time to moisture map. 1 hour, 2 hours, it's an insignificant amount of time. They just want to get in there, rip it out and, collect their deductible and, worry about billing and all that kind of stuff later.
Well, and I think a lot of these people are going in and trying to come up with they're shooting for some dollar amount that's a relatively low dollar amount so that the carrier will just pay it and move on. The problem is very often that creates problems for the insured where it's not really mitigated.
Yeah, it's not.
And it creates problems going forward. We have these people in Florida. I call them dry and ride companies, because they come in and they don't have to be licensed to put equipment in. They have to be licensed to pull that drywall out. And so they don't pull anything. They just drop the equipment for like 4 days, come back and say, you're all good, Miss Smith, and send the carrier a bill for like $6,800. And they pay it in a minute because it's cheap. And then it drives the entire claim to its eventual alternative dispute of some kind.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's absolutely crazy.
The homeowners, David, I realize, winter's coming up there. It's coming fast. There's a lot of trees that went through houses, trusses broken, top plates broken, foundations, jacked up. They're not waiting to pull permits. They're just getting up there and fixing it, doing an engineered repair in their mind, sistering, whatever they got to do, not pulling permits. The whole system is just overloaded. And I get it, right? I understand why they're doing it, but there's a process to this. Do it the right way. It's going to come back and haunt sooner or later. And I hate that.
I mean, like that contractor that does it that way eventually winds up with somebody coming after his liability insurance. That's what happens, because when something goes wrong, but they also don't understand that. I'll always get a kick out of this one because, like if you don't pull a permit for something, there is certain things that an insurance company can do to say that was an unpermitted non-code work that we're not responsible for. And I don't think that's exactly fair, but I do understand it nonetheless. Okay. Sure. I mean, I get it. I get why they say that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, where they have so much of that is out in California. Because California, because housing is so expensive, is they augment structures all the time.
Yeah.
And don't want to have to go get engineering, all that. So you end up with some really, really funky, janky Florida level kind of stuff.
Yeah. In Louisiana, to me, I saw a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have building codes here, y'all.
Yeah, it's like you ain't got no freaking permits. What are you talking about? That's what I get a kick out of all these states that they do other kinds of permits, but they don't do roofing permits at all.
North Carolina's one.
I mean, I just find that weird because like you would think a coastal state would have permits. Like in Florida, they're going to see your house. They're going to see your roof 3 times. You get 3 inspections. Always like to have that conversation with people and let them understand that it's not like you get supervision on a roof in Florida because your supervisor is going to wait for that permitting official to show up to do all 3 of the, and you got to stop your work until they give you clearance to go on. And
windows too, right? You had windows inspected or down in Florida.
Yeah, all of it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's just weird that they don't have to pull any permit on. I ran into up in Kansas. I ran into this unlicensed roofer, and I'm like, I wonder how he's an unlicensed roofer, and he just continues to have a thriving business. And this other roofer says, "Well, we don't have to pull permits, so it's not like
there's no requirement."
Yeah, it has to ever feature it, but. No, I just think that's weird, but
I was talking about deregulating the. I guess it's the General Contractors Association or the Building Code Association or group responsible for that. I'm not sure what that's called, but they're talking about deregulating it so that we can build more homes, expedite the building of more homes here in North Carolina.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Like. A lot of people disagree with me on this. Okay. But this is my thought about that. And for a lot of people, it's not popular, but like you take Texas. Okay. And there are problems in Texas. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to have a general contractor's license in Texas, but you have to get a permit for everything. And you can't get the permit unless you have insurance, unless you are doing the job right. Okay. And so in other words, when you're doing construction, you're still being managed by a regulatory authority. So I'm not bothered by the lack of licensure because you're still having to operate under that regulatory authority. It's not like just a free for all where anybody can pull up and say, I'm coming to work here and
I'm a GC today.
Yeah, I'm a GC today, because you still got to go your insurance, and you still got to get your permits. And it was years and years and years ago, but I managed like $6 million worth of construction there.
Yeah.
And
they're building houses here in North Carolina in 90 to 120 days. That's not fast enough.
Yeah, I know.
So what corners are they going to cut to expedite that 5 days? I don't know.
You should, like these big builders, like these D.R. Horton guys, like they just let these guys just blow and go, and they just wave them through. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things wrong with those houses. I mean, I know some mitigation companies that do nothing but work on D.R. Horton houses before they're sold, just because that's their whole job, is just working on those houses because there's so many failures. Like I'll give you a great example. when I stand at my house that I don't live in anymore, when I stand on my back porch, I look down at the house next door to me. Now, you can imagine that I'm in Florida. We don't live in a very hilly place. Like that hill I'm on is because they put fill in, because you're supposed to be 5 inches above the crown of the street. Okay. Well, my neighbors, like you drive down their drive to their house. And when it rains, they get water coming through, man. And I'm like, eventually, like these people are going to flood. And it's going to meet the criteria as a flood because it's going to be at least 2 acres, right?
Yep.
And I just because they're not putting enough fill, so they're not actually putting the house up very high, and that's the problem. But they put a house, like I'll give you an idea. They put these little stucco houses. We call them stucco houses because I hate stucco. I think it's
not good in Florida.
Well, it's not good in Florida, but it's like the thing about it is I mean, if you have stucco, you got to take care of the stucco. If you have brick, you just clean it on occasion.
On occasion, yes.
Yeah, and like 75 years from now, you may have to repoint it a little bit.
Maybe.
Maybe, depending on how good it was done. But I don't get it. I like the stucco. You're always having to paint it, retexture it, do all this stuff to it. It's yeah. But I mean, hey, from an insurance claim perspective, it's, when you can redash it, it's always
good,
like new.
Yeah.
But
what do you think of spray foam?
What's that?
What do you think of this? You going to put spray foam in your new home?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to put a roof on that doesn't suck up a bunch of heat for start, because I think it's stupid that we put these like dark roofs on the material. I mean, you've been in most attics in the afternoon, and it would just seem to me when it's 140 degrees in my attic, it's kind of working against me. You get the Chernobyl effect. It just makes everything hard because it heats everything up.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I was thinking about the only reason I think, like, you ever notice, like we have these homes now that are like these high-end homes that, like, you shut the door and your ears pop because they're just so tight. There's like it doesn't breathe at all.
Yeah.
What I notice is those places take damage from wind faster than places that breathe. I don't
really.
Well, I mean,
from the pressure.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example that I just noticed over and over again. Like, we have these big sliders that you have big heavy sliders that you have when you're facing the ocean, right? Well, the big heavy newest sliders that are really rigid and really thick, those babies will let water in better than those older ones that would give, because when they gave, it would just just kind of buttress it, and they didn't fail as much. Nice. And so I always just think about that. It's like maybe we kind of overdo it sometimes.
I'm just old fashioned where something's got to breathe. The whole structure is built and designed to breathe.
Yeah.
When it's first built, it's built, to the conditions, what the building material that's in there and all that stuff. So down the road, when it's changed, they're not changing all the different components of that new building material. So
that's right.
So it's just kind of, I'm not sold on it yet.
Well, let me tell you, like, how, like, when they do encapsulation, when you do encapsulation, you keep your you've got a building system that part of the reason why it has that bare wood in there is because as temperature changes, it sucks up water and releases it. So it keeps you from having a moldy environment. You go encapsulate that wall.
Where's it going to go?
And it's the same. A lot of people have the same problem when you have drywall over metal studs, because there's nowhere for the condensation to go.
Right.
So you end up with bad mold problems behind those walls. And, I still think we ought to rebirth and do like they do in New Orleans. We should just get plaster, just laughing plaster. And we get like baseboards this tall, and you bring the plaster down just below the baseboard. And when the water's coming, you take the baseboards off,
Let it come in and go out.
and you let it come in and go out, and you dry it out, and you dry it out and put it back, and you're back in shape.
Yes.
And
Are we done?
nobody wants to talk about it, but plaster doesn't have cellulosic material, and so it doesn't mold. I mean,
I'm doing a house up there, or I'm the PA on the house up in Asheville. So actually in Hendersonville, plaster, beautiful, tiny little house, but man, that plaster work was good. The baseboard, the best way, I've never seen it like this before. The baseboard was actually plaster. It looked like a form too.
Yeah.
And I had to look at it 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, wow, this is some skilled folks here. Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably not that hard. I know there's probably a special tool for it, but trying to find a plaster guy right now.
No, you can't. Like I did a place up in New York last year, and this place had not a single bit of wood trim in it. It was all plaster, every bit of it. All the crown was plaster. Everything, and it was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And what they had to do when they had a loss on it is they had to go to heroics not to take the plaster down, because there was nobody to put it back. Yeah. Maybe that's what I do when I quit this business. I'll go into plaster.
Or be a knockdown guy. The knockdown culture. They're hard to find. It's another trade that's just died.
Yeah. I had these guys once. I never forget as long as I live. I had this office building I was managing, like post Katrina, that had to be, all the drywall had to be changed out in it, and it had already been gutted. And I hired these drywall guys, and he told me the price, and the price was okay. And I said, "How long is it going to take you?" He says, 3 days. I said, "It's 4 stories, dude. We're talking about like 20,000 square feet." He goes, "Uh-huh." I'm like, he goes, "You want to sign the contract, send me the check, or what you want to do?" I'm like, "You're serious? You need 4 days?" He goes, "We'll probably do it in 3, but
I'm
just going to say 4. So I'm standing on this site, and these guys pull up, and there's like 20 of them, and they go to work, and in like 6.5 hours, they got all the drywall hung. And while when they hung it, this other group of people were coming in and floating it. So by the time they finished, they finished in about an hour after that, they had all their base mud done. And the guy comes out and says to me, he goes, "We might get out of here late tomorrow."
Well,
I said to him, I said, do you paint? He goes, "Yeah." I go, "How long did that take?" He says, "Day." Because they were just, they brought an army. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But you
I have a commercial property right now up in Western North Carolina, flood, and drywall, flood, 2-foot flood cuts around. And with, talking to the contractor, how long it's going to take, 60 days. 60 days? I'm like, they'll put you up in the hotel here. Why don't you run 2 shifts? Oh, we'll probably do that. I just don't understand now I don't know if he was sandbagging it. I don't know how that was going to work out, but I haven't seen that yet. But
we just did this project after Katrina, and this guy says to me, he says, "Well, how much will it cost to put my house together?" And I think I said it was going to be like $140,000. And he said, "I'll pay you $200,000 if you can have it done in 31 days.
Shit was done, wasn't it?
And so we brought some RVs. We made an outdoor kitchen. We had 2 shifts of cooks come in. They cooked all the meals right there. And we turned the entire project over in 26 days. And I shared that $60,000 with the whole crew.
Nice.
And
why don't we do that more often? Why don't we do that more often?
What do you mean?
Usually a typical rebuild after a fire here in North Carolina is 6 months.
Yeah, I know.
Why don't we do that more often?
Well, the thing is, this is what I've noticed is like there are some people who have enough flow to be able to time their trades perfectly. And those guys can move extremely fast because they've got a set of subs that they're feeding them every day. So they're able to just literally move it in that way. And I think to some degree a bunch of I hate to sound like a curmudgeon when I say this, but like we don't have as many tradesmen as we had when I was a younger man. I mean, like we used to have. I always used to love framers because framers were the only people I knew that were just framers. That's what they were. And if they weren't framing, they deliver pizzas, but they were not doing anything else on the construction site. And I just always thought that I don't know. I think that just a lot. I think that the DR Hortoning of our world has changed the level of work that we do. I mean, like
90 days.
Well, like I look in this house that I'm in right now. I know that it was probably made by DR Horton or one of those guys, and there's not a.
You're not at the construction of it, are you? You're not looking around at the construction of the house, are you?
Oh, I am. The doors aren't square, and the doors aren't square, and there's not a wall in the house that doesn't wave like that. It's just nice. Yeah. I mean, you have to look to see it, but like, say you have a lamp on, you can see like shadows on the wall that are weird. I thought it was like water damage at first. I'm like, no, it's. I got taught this really cool thing by this drywall guy years ago, and I've used it ever since. I walked into a property once, and I said, "Who's here?" And he says, "I'm here." And it was completely dark. I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm checking the drywall." I'm like, "In the dark?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Here, come here." He says, "I want you to feel this." He took my hand across. He says, "You feel that? You feel that?" He says, "That spot right there?" He says, "I put a circle around that because that needs to be addressed." And I said, "But why in the dark?" He says, "Because we humans have this really cool characteristic. If we shut down one of our senses, it makes our other senses better." And he said, "Watch this." He says, "You want to see if a floor is level? Close your eyes and walk, and you'll know if the floor is level right then, because I've done it. I've probably done it 1,000 times, and it is. And he's right. You take out one of our senses, and you take out like our eyes out of it, and our other senses will take over and be much more sensitive. And
what I'm going to do? I'm going to be walking around the house in the middle of the night with all the lights off and bare feet too.
Yeah.
I'll be walking around the house. Neighbors think I'm a weirdo.
Oh yeah. Look, man. So have you gotten to your kind of peak level on your claims that you can handle?
Absolutely, and it's hard. I'm very fortunate. I had a referral source system up there prior to the storm, and so I'm there, and I'm trying to get some folks to come in and help me from some scoping, and where my writing's going to go. So, but they're not. They're lazy. People are lazy. I'm sorry. They don't want to work. The younger generation, just not that I'm old or more mature, significantly more mature. It's just a different work ethic.
You know what the difference is? It's not that they don't want to work. Is that you just want to work and they want to work in a certain way.
I'll buy that. I'll give you that.
Like, look, I've got one of the best people I've ever hired that manages my schedule and bugs everybody about getting things back to me and all this kind of stuff. Okay. But I can call her and probably 9 times out of 10, she's not answering the phone. She will sometimes text me back and say, "I'm busy. Can I call you later?" I'm like, I want to say, I'm your freaking boss. But the truth is she does such an incredible job that I'm okay with her doing it on her basis. But like but most of these, we actually miss though in the world is we kind of had this idea that, I've got to do this so that I can become this. Okay. Like this idea that there was a law of progression in the world, like sometimes I'll see somebody come into the, PA world and think they're going to go get $7 million files and think they're going to be okay, and it's just stupid. Like they hadn't adjusted 3 claims and they think they're going to go get all this big stuff. And then I see but these guys don't work a grind to get to their next level. They want to ascribe that I've arrived at this level before they have. And there's just not a lot of depth to it. So like all that uncomfortable stuff that we have to do in our industry, there's just a lot of people don't want to do it. That's why I always respect the restorers, because those guys have to, those guys that are at the tip of the spear. I mean, they got to do all the nasty stuff.
Yes.
But I mean, outside of that, and I've always said this too, though, that, you go to a construction site and that's the biggest bunch of pre-bananas there walk face the earth. I mean, I was on this construction site I was managing one day, and I said to this guy, I said, Mike, why are you in such a bad mood? He says, because Sam was rude to me. I'm like, do you want me to talk to him about being rude to you? Yes, I do, because it's making it a hostile workplace. And I'm like, no, you sweat for a living. You can't be this way. But they, but they are. I mean, it happens, But no, I'll tell you, next week's going to be a bear. We have to have an election, and then I have to go to Georgia, New Jersey, New York, and Maine, and then I have to come back to Florida. Yeah, and then I have to come back to Florida, and then I have to go to Kansas and Wisconsin, and then to Tennessee. That's I daisy chained all this stuff together, and it's gonna be hellish.
Yeah.
But there's one good thing about it. Most of those places I'm going aren't going to make me sweat like where I was today.
That's right. Georgia may. Don't discount Georgia quite yet, but not as bad. Maine, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to more North Maine, so it'll be pretty warm there. It's a place I hadn't been. I always tell my wife, and she'll be with me, because ever since the kids have been, at college, she usually goes with me because it keeps me more sane. And like for example, if I'm just left to my own devices, I'll work 20 hours a day and just be kind of just pinched off from everything. That's just my nature. And she'll stop me and say, "No, we're going to have dinner now, and you're going to put down your phone, and we're going to just talk about life. We're not going to do anything else," and like it. And that's good because it kind of resets you.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. And what's interesting is,
but you're not coming home. You're going to just go from town, state to state.
I am.
So you're driving? Nice.
No, I'm flying. I really thought about driving. And if I had a little bit less work, I probably would have taken the RV because I really prefer that. But I mean, that's just a whole lot of driving, man. A whole lot.
I agree.
And I don't like to drive that. I don't really like driving the RV more than about 5 hours a day if I can avoid it. And I don't like driving at night because there's just too many things that can go wrong.
Yeah. I like driving at night, RV or not.
No, I like driving at night. Like I love drive. Like I drive a lot of times. My whole work experiences, I've always gotten on the road at like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, because I just love the quiet of being able to drive that time of night with all the other professional drivers. My wife is scared to death of these trucks. I'm like, you do know they do this for a living, right?
Yeah. 100,000 miles a year on the road. A year, at least.
Yeah. I do almost 70,000.
I'm at like 35 right now. And it's just,
yeah, but you got to understand, like I go, like, it's just not uncommon for me to drive 7.5, 8 hours in one direction, do 4 or 5 things, and then schlep back.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm going to put, if I get, I told this guy with my, I told this guy that was dealing with my warranty on my truck. He's like, I was like, you got one that does tires? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're not going to need tires like bunches of times in like the first 100,000 miles, are you? I'm like, probably.
Why don't you
No.
consider moving to more central Florida, where you can get to most locations within 4 hours?
Yeah, but it doesn't do me any good because I mean, I'm just as apt to go to Louisiana, Texas. I mean, I'm 6.5 hours from where I go regularly in Tennessee. So it doesn't it. The only good thing was if I was more centrally located, I would probably be able to do like the Tampa airport. But you remember this guy named Edgar Casey? Remember him?
I do not.
Look up Edgar Casey. He made a map of the United States. He used to, what he would do is he would get in like this meditative state, and then he would just come out with this stuff, and he'd have no remembrance of it whatsoever. And like he told everybody where to buy in Virginia Beach. He'd never been to Virginia Beach. He just told everybody where to buy, and they all became multimillionaires. You know, he told us where we would find Atlantis. And a few years back, they found the paving stones to Atlantis. And he also told us that most of Florida would be underwater.
There you go.
So
There's still some towns that are underwater down there. Is that correct? There's a town or two that's still underwater?
No. I mean, like, no,
Okay.
but like, no, I mean, it's just, just to give you a notion, I mean, if you had 1 foot of sea rise, you're gonna lose everything south of the Everglades. I mean, unless you decided to build some magnanimous seawalls of some sort, and I don't, we might have a presidential election again, and we'll have to remove climate change from all the federal documents again. But
we're building in marshland, David. Mother Nature's going back to their original state at some point, right? So you can backfill and all that stuff, but she's going to go back. It's going to become at marshland at some other point.
Yeah, well, she always gets her way, and what I always joke about with Florida is, and you go, if you ever pick up if you watch a documentary on Florida, you'll find that Florida had one theme from its inception: make money, just make money. That's all we care about. It wasn't until the President of the United States decided that the Everglades would be a federal park because it was ecologically wonderful that they had to stop filling in the Everglades and selling the land. The problem was they kept filling up the Everglades. They'd fill them up and then they'd sell the land, and then people, 6 weeks later, the land would be gone because, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I think 2025 is going to be interesting because, I think we're going to have an interesting year coming up.
We'll see.
Because 2024 has been interesting, I would say, for you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Who would have ever thought when you were just kicking around your house, and you're watching this stuff happen in Florida, and you're like, oh, it's going to rain up here.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's it's not right up the road from you, but it's not that far. And I mean, this chaos happens like, I don't know. I mean,
I'm in to the coast, just like every other, hurricane season that's happened here. 2.5 hours away. My parents live at the coast. I'm thinking this would be great. And like I said, where I was lucky was I already was doing some work up in Western North Carolina. So it just fit right in there for me.
That's awesome. I think what's going to ultimately happen, by the way, to all that property that's on the beach is there's going to be some point in the future, they're just going to be like, hey, this property on the beach isn't working so well for us, so we're going to need you to move, and we're going to tear it down, and we're going to put the dunes back up, because that's the only thing that helps us.
Yes.
I really do think we'll eventually do that. We'll eventually just take the whole freaking coast and say, you got to be 60 yards back, and there's nothing close to the water, and that's all there is to it. And
we have houses in North Carolina that are falling into the ocean,
yeah,
and they're just letting it happen. So, yeah, it's definitely coming.
Yeah, I did some work in one in North Carolina, and I told the owner, I go, you do know that you need to like make other plans, right? I said, because I said your house won't take another. I mean, you can't shore it enough to overcome the ocean coming at you. I mean, there's it's kind of like with there's some places in Louisiana that are not there anymore.
Yeah,
they're just gone, and they're never coming back. So
such is life.
Such is life. It's I don't know. I think that Thomas, in our industry we live in the tween, and we do good with all the mayhem.
Yeah.
And that may be a weird place to be, but I talked to a lady today and in California, and she talked about maybe handling her appraisal, and she said, yeah, I had a fire on December 4th of last year. And I said, well, I had one December 3rd. And I could actually understand her. I could understand what she was going through. And it was so cool to be able to just get her all the way. And I just think like what you do as a business, as a PA, I think the fact that you see all these things in real personal ways, you know exactly what to expect. And you know exactly how to counsel these people in a way that tells them what's coming. And I just think that's magic. I watched a PA the other day tell an insured, he said, look, this ain't going to go fast. This isn't going to be easy. We're going to get you paid. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be 2 weeks from now. It's going to be a few months. And that's going to cause you a lot of stress. So just prepare for that. It's okay. It's the way it's supposed to work. And also had this, the crappiest thing was, Florida has this 30-day right of cancellation on the PA contracts. Mm-hmm. And, I have a client, I had actually referred a PA to a friend of a friend's house, and he worked his ass off to get everything working. And she was kind of she was related to somebody in government. And so he had kind of used that to his advantage and basically had the claim settled like that. And
then she terminated him.
And she terminated him. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Jimmy P. Appreciate it.
And David, you talked about, I explain to folks, listen, we're going to have a lot of activity. And then once we file that proof of loss, it's going to be crickets. And it's okay. I'm going to, I'm telling you, this is going to happen. Reach out to me. I'm going to reach out to you, but there could be 7-8 days goes in between our discussion. It's right. Okay. It's just part of the process. Give me a holler, shoot me a text. I'll respond to you or I'll call you, but expect it to come. It's coming.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's the thing is that I always think that people don't recognize with the PA is, if you really get down to it, one thing that you do, okay, is you make better things happen faster, and you avoid a lot of pitfalls that make it extend a long way. So you do shorten the process substantially from where somebody would be if they were doing it by themselves.
Sure.
And I don't think that you always get credit for that, but you really do. You really do move the chains in ways that really matter.
Well, one of the things, each time I close a file, I kind of look back on some of the decisions I've made, how I handled certain things to look for the improvement. What could I have done better? And I'm not beating myself up about it. It is what it is. But history is a good indication of the future.
Yes, it is.
Right? So, and, I've done some great moves, where I did an inspection and I called the desk adjuster and said, hey, I think we need an engineer out here. What do you think? And then, send them the pictures, and they get to make that decision. Yes, we'll get an engineer out. And then they sit on it. Because, at some point we knew an engineer had to come out. So why wait till this is filed or the proof of loss is filed? Get them out here. Let's get them on the board. And just, every case, every difference, every loss is different scenario and different, course, path of progression. But looking back at it, always room for improvement. So
yeah,
that's
there is. There is. I think that those of us that do self-review are the ones that make it do great things, because I do a thing every every November, actually. What I start doing today is the first thing I do is I make a list of everything that's working well, all of it, every process, every way that we do things, all of it. And I make a list of all those things. And then I start progressively going through those things and asking me, is that really working as well as it should? Because we tend to get in these ruts where we say this works, but maybe it's really only working 50% of the way it should work. It's just 50% better than zero, which was good, but you could do better. Yeah. And there's always some incremental change that I make that just moves things ahead in a big way. And one of the things that I'll give you a great example. Like in my estimation firm years ago, like 80% of everything that came through the door was in Florida. And I looked at that about 5 years ago, and I said, that's stupid and dangerous. I didn't know how dangerous at the time, but I thought it was dangerous. Now I know what I worry about. Yeah. But basically, so we're in the middle of a hurricane and all that work from the hurricane, but still only about 30% of our work is coming from Florida. And that's probably the most satisfying thing, because I broke our system, because our system didn't think that way. And so we're as apt to get work from Washington State as New York, as Kansas, to, anywhere. Yeah. And that's just really, really cool. And the other part of that is it's made my people better, because it means they know more about more places. And that's so right. It just makes them better at what they do. Yeah. But I mean, you have to have an irreverence for how things are. And I do that right down to my own relationships, and just see what I'm doing that just could be a lot better. Yeah. And usually, like at the end of this process, one thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to probably find out that I spend too much time behind this desk.
I'm not going to say anything, but you probably do. But one of the things you've done is, by doing that, David, you're allowing yourself to sit back and look at the data, because you've put all these processes in over the years and improved them every year and tweaked and all this stuff. It's allowed you to get to that point to look at the data, sit back and understand it, analyze. The past is a good indication of the future. It is.
You know what else is true? Is that it's utterly impossible for somebody to consistently act in a way that's inconsistent with who they are. Did you know that?
I've heard you talk about that, and I've done a lot of thinking about that lately.
It's crazy. It's like when God put together the world, he just figured out how to make it where you get to know exactly who you're talking to. They end up having to be themselves, I mean, I've got a client that's going to call me back. He texts me and says, I'm going to call you back. And he'll call me Tuesday, because he can't do anything but that. That's who he is. I can't get upset with him about not calling me back, because that's who he is. Most of our problems in the world is expectation, right?
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes looking at like who people are helps you recognize, how not to have really all that expectation. My kids are the greatest thing in the world about breaking me of expectation. No, they really are. They really are. Because like at some point I was able to say, I just want you to be happy, whatever it is. Go. Yeah. I don't have to agree with you. How old are your kids?
23, 21, and 19.
Oh, wow. You got a lot of not even close to off the payroll.
No. all four of them are in college right now.
Oh, wow.
The gray hair, the no hair. They're working late hours.
I've got one that's going to go to grad school, and not grad school, to law school. And I mean, she's the girl, I mean, yeah. And yeah. And I can't do anything but take care of her. I mean, like, I don't care what she needs. I don't care if it's legit or not. It's just okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I gotta make a lot more money. I have a client, by the way, who has like 11 kids, and I go, you gonna have more? He says, yeah, probably. I'm like, good. He says, why are you excited about that? I said, because we're always going to do. I said, you're never going to be able to quit working.
That's right.
I had this friend named Jim years ago, and he had his 7th kid, and they were at the hospital, and his wife was going to have her tubes tied, and she was about to go back to have the baby. And he leans over and he goes, baby, are you sure you want to do that? And she reached up and grabbed him by his neck and said, how poor do you want to be, Jim? Yeah.
Someone has 11 kids.
What's that?
You know a guy who's got 11 kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually went to eat at his house when I was when I was working in his area not too long ago, and had dinner with his whole family, all of them.
I mean, that's like an event just to have dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's production.
Man, they got like their kitchens, like a production level kitchen. They got an F-250 with some kind of weird back end on it, so they can carry all their whole tribe at the same time.
Jeez. There was that TV show, Duggars, whatever they were. They had.
Yeah, the problem was they had a bunch of other problems too, though. Objects under pressure. Objects under pressure often are volatile.
Yes.
Yeah.
One or two of them's in jail now, I think, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nothing like messing up your family by turning your brother over so he has to go to jail, It's like, yeah.
Fisher family there.
Yeah. Parents probably aren't going to call me back.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, you have a good one. It's good to talk to you tonight. It's good to hear that you're doing well. It's good to hear that everything going on up there is going good.
We're moving in the right direction.
Steady.
Yeah, get ready, because I'm compiling all the data. So I've got some stuff coming your way. So
one thing I want you to remember on all that work that's being done there, you have got to address the price of the work and make sure that you're actually looking at it and figuring out what the appropriate price is. Because Exactware has not been able to keep up with pricing in a way that is proper, and they don't think they should either. I do believe they're trying to break us of reliance. I mean, because they added that language in their license that said not the de facto standard.
Yeah. No, I have learned. I have one file on top of a mountain, 4.5 miles up the mountain, on a 10-foot wide dirt gravel road, and you need 28 minutes.
How long did it take to get down?
28 minutes. It was actually 27 and something like that. Blind curves in there and all this stuff. Scratched the hell out of my truck too from the trees still being down. But okay, we'll handle that. Talking to the contractor, can't have dumpsters up there. No dumpster companies will go. So you have to have a trailer up there. And this one particular house is on a slope and the roof flew off. So they've got to get some equipment there to get it out. And they're driving, to the dump is the 20 some minutes down the road, and then 45 minutes from there to get to the dump. So I'm, documenting all this stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing is they're not going to be able to carry that much weight anyway. So because you don't want to get pushed down the mountain.
Correct.
I'm not going to tell you why I know that.
From personal experiences, right?
Yeah, I was dragging a boat that was probably a little big for the truck I was driving, and it didn't have its brakes working, and it just about pushed me down the mountain. It was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you can tow anything with a truck. Doesn't matter. It's the braking that will kill you, literally and figuratively, right?
Right. That's
It's
right.
a lot of weight moving behind you.
Oh yeah, and but I mean, just we got to do the pricing thing, and we got to do the pricing thing really, really carefully, because if we don't, we're going to screw these people on the regular. And one thing that I've done is just not stayed. I've just not done. I've just had to think about pricing every day, and I think I'm going to talk about a little bit that this weekend, because I'm going to talk about some things I actually have found and that they're not what I expected. But hey, man, you have a good night.
You too, man. Thank you, David. I appreciate you, man.
Talk to you soon. Take care, buddy.
Take care, bud.
Peace.